Perfect. Well, hello, 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 and welcome to this week's episode of Plant the Spike, a Valorant podcast focused specifically on the VCT Americas region and other North American Valorant as it may come up. My name is Lance, and I'm joined by the not tech paused co-host Styx. Styx, how are you doing tonight?
I'm not tech paused, which is always lovely.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I have had a good day, so I'm in a good mood right now. And I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about it, but Sentinels are going to Toronto, so I'm in an even better mood.
Yes, one of us got to be very happy this weekend. The other one, not quite as much. But no, at the end of the day, uh, banger matches all weekend long. I mean, we
Yeah.
were we were for sure treated to that. So can't really complain too much, even though my team, as you can see, ended up not making it in. Had to put on the 100 Thieves shirt to pour one out for them. But we'll get to the sadness later. We'll get to the happiness later for Sentinels. Wanted to kind of start off with some news here. And actually, I take that back. Before we even jump into the news, just a quick reminder about what we are. So, the Plant the Spike show is a live call in show where you have the opportunity to call in with your hot takes and plant your spike for us to go over. You have to defend it, and we'll check and see if it's a hot take or maybe it's not. But if you want to join on this show, all you have to do is join our Discord. Discord link is in the description,
And I'm
as
putting it in my Twitch chat right now as well.
and it's in Stick's Twitch chat as well. So that's perfect. Yeah, definitely join up. Like I mentioned last episode, and probably for the first couple of episodes, this is going to be just Sticks and I talking about the upcoming news and recent games, things like that. But we absolutely want to have you on the show. And the hope is also maybe to get some guests on the show as well. Going to start reaching out to some people once we have a little bit more clout and have the ability to actually reach out to people. But that will come down the line. So in the meantime, you're stuck listening to us, and we'll try to get some more interesting content on here as the weeks go on. So, speaking of as the weeks and time goes on, in news this week, the big news coming up is we are just about to hit the 5-year anniversary of Valorant, 2020. You guys might remember that year. Some things happened, but Valorant was one of those things.
I think Valorant was actually the biggest thing that happened that year.
If I remember, it might have actually been the only thing that happened in 2020.
Yeah, the only thing worth remembering at least.
Right. Maybe I'm crazy, but yeah,
Actually, wait, you got married in 2020. Hang on.
I said what I
You should
said.
probably remember that.
No, it was marriage, and then Valorant came out, and so then that
Right, you're
everything
right.
was
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Okay. I
that's
get
how
it.
it was. Um, yeah, no, but other basically what we're hearing from Valorant and from Riot is that with the 5-year anniversary of Valorant coming up, they have promised that they have still been listening to us, and they say that against all odds, they should have some version of a replay system out to us by champs. So
Please.
we will
It's only
see.
been 5 years.
We will see if that actually happens or not. It would actually be pretty sick. There's some things that we could do on this show where we, would actually be able to use the replay system, go through, have viewers send in their games, things like that. That would be pretty sick for us to do with you guys and review those. But in the meantime, we'll take them at their word. They say it'll be here by champs. We'll check back in by the end of the year and see if they stuck to their word or not. In other news as well, the Sentinels Toronto jersey got dropped, and if you have not seen a photo of it, you
So
absolutely
cool.
have to. Uh,
I love it.
this is one of the coolest jerseys in recent memory that I can think of. I don't know if you can think of any other ones off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
I genuinely like, and this is not me being biased, not entirely anyway, but like genuinely, I love their Toronto jersey. It looks so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely got some swag, and I mean, it helps that they're going to Toronto, the home of hockey, and it looks like a hockey jersey. The only, maybe setback on that is they did put it at a $140 price tag, probably because it is, hopefully very high quality because of it, and I'm sure they had to do a limited run of it, so because of that, if you're doing less product, they have to charge more on the back end for it.
Yeah, I mean, I said I'm gonna get it, but I'm waiting until all my bills and everything are paid for May because they're not shipping out until I think they said June.
That
So I'm waiting to buy it for now.
does that work if they ship it out in June? Does that still give them time to get it out before Toronto starts?
That's a great question. When does Toronto start?
Um, I actually don't know. We're a Valorant podcast, guys. We know.
Hang on.
I was looking on. Well,
It's Masters. That's right. I was gonna say Champions. Masters Toronto.
starts in.
June 7th to the 22nd.
Oh,
But I
okay.
will say, once they do ship, like once Sentinels does ship out your stuff, it gets to you pretty quickly. Because like I ordered this. This was like a pre-order.
Hmm.
Because I got like one of the customized ones with one of the players' names on the back. And
Oh
so
yeah,
it's like, but once it actually was like packaged and sent out, like it got to me within a week. So
yeah. That's
they're
pretty
pretty
good.
good about that.
Yeah, and that's good as well. I mean, most of these teams that are going to champs are going to have something like that that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it'll be there in time. The players are going to look sick if they wear these. My only thing is it's a long sleeve jersey, and a lot of players hate long sleeve jerseys because they get in the way of them actually, making their moves and moving their arms and things like that. So I'll be curious to see what their thoughts are on it.
I will say there are a lot of players that wear like jackets and stuff while they're
Mm,
playing.
hmm.
So, I mean, like, how big of a deal is it really then if, if they're doing that?
Yeah, it depends. Hockey jerseys are notoriously like looser and like floppier
That's
around the
true.
arms. Oh, hit my mic. So it just depends on if that's actually going to be the case for it, or if it is going to be one of those that's maybe a little bit tighter, less hockey-ish in that regard.
Yeah.
That's the only thing there.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We will see because I will be buying it, but we'll see.
Yes, at the end of the day, that it looks sick, and really that's all that matters.
Exactly. I mean, who
Um,
knows? Will the players actually wear it? Like, will they actually wear it, or will they just wear like their normal jerseys and windbreakers and all that? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't
That's what
know.
you have to wonder. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because
Right, yeah.
it seems like the jersey's for us, and that's all
Yes.
that matters. um, yeah, no. So I'm looking forward to seeing people cop that, and hopefully because it's in Toronto, hopefully people actually at Toronto will have an opportunity to buy it. That would make it super sick.
Yeah.
It'd be
I
sick to
feel
see
like,
those in the crowd.
and as well, they've done it, at least at the game that we went to, they did it where, like, if you bought it at the event, it was all at a discount, which would be the perfect time to buy it then.
Totally. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. And we might as well, if we're talking about that, we might as well just jump into the games this last week. Rather than going through each individual game, I thought it might be better to just kind of talk more in depth about each of the teams who are going. Since we've just been talking about the Sentinels Toronto jersey, a bit of a spoiler, I suppose, but they have punched their ticket to Toronto. Um, and honestly, I think that in my mind, Sentinels have kind of upset here. The first game against C9 was quick. They popped off, no doubt about
Yes.
it. They were the better team. But honestly, I didn't expect the G2 match to be as close as it was, let alone Sentinels coming out on top.
Yeah. I mean, I was fully I texted you even before the match happened and I was like, I'm gonna be so sad when they lose.
Yeah,
Like this is gonna be so depressing. I was like, I was at Disneyland and I'm like, and I'm gonna be sad. Like
yeah,
at Disneyland. Like that those two things don't go together, but I'm like, but it'll be sad. And then I had to act like a normal person when they won. Um and that was hard.
right.
Um
What were
but
you in
yeah,
line
no,
for when they won?
I had just gotten off Guardians of the Galaxy and I was sitting in Avengers Campus
Hmm.
because I was like, well, they're on the last map, like and it's almost done. I was like, I'm really only waiting around for the World of Color show, like, and for my reservation, like I'll just watch the match because I was there alone, by the way. I wasn't on my phone with people around. I was there alone,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh, I'll watch the match." And then I yeah, and then they won, and I was just like, "Well, what do I do now? Like, I can't like react the way I want to."
Yep.
So it was
No.
good though. It was a very, very good game.
Yeah, it was specifically. I think we could talk about Cloud9 a little bit later, just because there's a lot going on there to talk about.
Oh yeah.
But Sentinels specifically, if we're focusing on them, I mean, you had in each game, the C9 and the G2 game, you had different people popping off, and I think that honestly, for this Sentinels team, that's kind of going to be their recipe for success. It seems that the more, you don't need to have the whole team popping off. I think that if you want to go deep into an international, that's going to need to be what happens. But if they're playing domestically like this, where one maybe two people are just really, putting in the work and showing up in a big way, um, I think that that's going to be enough for them to win and continue to go deep into the Americas playoffs. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I am fully back in Sentinels now. I'm like they beat
Oh yeah,
G2. I'm like they beat G2, so like really like obviously it's G2, so there's always going to be some worry there. But I know they can do it now in this split.
yep,
So I am going to fully back them. Cuz well, so they got beat by G2 in kickoff, right? And then
yes,
went back to uh play against them in the best of 5
yeah.
grand final.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's like this is the first time G2 has been beat. Like obviously they came back and spoiler alert they won against who was it that they won against? C9?
100 Thieves.
100 Thieves, that's what I meant. So, you know, I
Yeah,
hate to break it to you, like they're not a great like 100 Thieves is not a great team. Like that was obviously like we're like they're going to win. So
yeah,
I feel like if they go up against Sentinels again, we're going to get either all the way to 5 maps cuz I'm expecting them to face off in the grand final personally.
okay,
So I expect them to go to 5 maps, if not another Sentinels win, just because of the fact that it'll be in their heads now that Sentinels are the only team to have beat them in the Americas region.
yeah. No, totally. And yeah, I mean, we're touching on a lot of teams that I definitely want to dive deeper into. Obviously, I want it to feel a little cohesive. So, we'll dive in a little bit into maybe what happened with G2 later on and kind of where we expect them to end up. Um, Before we get to those teams, though, we would be doing a disservice if we didn't also mention the other team that made their way to Toronto. MIBR was actually the first team to clinch their spot in Toronto by
Yeah.
absolutely demolishing 100 Thieves and Crew in back-to-back days. Um, I
Yeah, Crew
mean,
decided to just not show up against MIBR.
that Crew game was just disgusting. I
Yeah.
There wasn't a second in the game where I thought that MIBR, could have lost. Um, on Lotus they won. Well, actually, yeah, on Lotus they won both the pistols, and they just like snowballed the entire game from there. Even though Crew took a few rounds off of them on defense, um,
Yeah.
it really didn't seem like they could even get a footing at all. So, and then Icebox they just rolled them. So I mean, this
Oh,
game,
yeah, no, Icebox was sad.
that game was over before it even started. I felt, and
Yeah.
they are looking very hot, getting ready to go into Toronto. They're coming up playing against Sentinels next this upcoming week. What are your what are you looking out for when it comes to MIBR versus Sentinels? How is Sentinels going to pull it out over them?
I think it'll be because it's gonna be that Zek and Ospas head to head again.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if Sentinels like they're riding this high of beating G2 now. So again, I feel like it's gonna be so much more mental than actual physical because it's like we know everyone on Sentinels is good.
Right.
Like it's just are they gonna be better than MIBR on that day? And I feel like yes, MIBR are already qualified for Toronto and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't have to beat G2 to get there.
Right. Yes, that's true.
So Sentinels were like, okay, we just beat the team that got first in kickoff, like,
Yeah.
and it has not lost a single match. Like, they're gonna be riding high right now,
Oh,
and so I
totally.
feel like that'll give them. somewhat of an advantage against MIBR. But then again, as well, if we have like um, John QC like calling another really good game, and then we have Zekin popping off again because that's what it took against G2 was
Hmm.
him absolutely popping off. I don't know if it was him that got to. Oh no, sorry, that was against the Cloud9 game. Never mind, ignore me on that one. But like Zekin, I feel like if he's on a good day, he can easily go toe to toe with Osbos. So
Yeah.
I don't. I'm hopeful. I think we're gonna get a good match, but I'm hopeful that Sentinels are gonna come out on top.
No, that's a good point. I think either way, the match is going to be a banger. I don't think that there's any two ways about that.
Yeah,
MIBR and Sentinels are both coming in very hot, exactly how you said. So it just kind of depends on who shows up on the day that much more to really put it to the other team. I think. Um, one other quick thing on MIBR because we won't really be talking about them very much the rest of the episode, but did want to call out, especially in the 100 Thieves game because I sadly had to watch that and experience Aspas just show up and destroy 100 Thieves. But it wasn't only Aspas who showed up, and I think that this is kind of one of the cool things with this team is it has been known as Aspas in the rookies for some time because um, if I remember correctly, there's three rookies on the team with Verno now being
yeah.
the third. But Cortesia absolutely destroyed 100 Thieves. He the team just could not get around him. I think he had like multiple 3 or 4 Ks, like at the very least on Icebox, if not the entire map. Um, I was so annoyed. he 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 just did so good. Yeah, so Cortesia he had
It
two 3Ks and two
two
four
three
Ks,
Ks. Yeah,
but it really felt like they were at the perfect rounds for him. Um, I can't remember specifically, obviously, when they happened, but I mean he just demolished them. And so it's cool to see him kind of starting to come into his own. Same thing with Verno. I think that seeing Verno being the player that we expected him to be coming out of tier two into VCT is really cool. And it just makes you wonder what happened on NRG that he was so terrible that they had to get rid of him. Um,
I
NRG's.
saw I saw someone on Twitter saying that it's funny that NRG said that he had like a communication problem,
Mhm.
and now he's on a team that speaks mainly Portuguese.
Yes.
And I'm just
And
like, this
winning.
clearly, yeah, I'm like, he's clearly not the problem there.
Yeah. No, it always seemed like he was the scapegoat.
Yes.
It just we just didn't have proof of it, and I think that now we do have the proof, and so it's very funny to see. I love it when kids like this
It's
just pop
very
off.
poetic. I love it.
Yeah. So it's sick that he's gotten the second chance and he is doing very, very well with it.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that upper final is going to be amazing. I'm stoked to see what happens with it. Obviously, we have a little bit of time before we get there, and we might touch on it again later on in the show. But that will be on May 2nd, which I believe is Friday. Is that correct? Yeah, May 2nd is Friday.
Yes.
So that'll be cool. Um, cool. All right. Well, enough about the winners. Let's start talking about some losers. Um, And where would we be talking about losers if we did not start with just the absolute crash out that is Cloud9? Um,
I have
I
to laugh or else I'll cry.
I am shocked by how bad Cloud9 was in the
Oh
playoffs.
gosh.
It was pretty insane just how much they underperformed. I as a fan, what have you been feeling about Cloud9 after? For those of you that maybe didn't watch the games, they lost against Sentinels in not really a close game, and then they lost against EG against a game that was a lot closer than it should have been, especially on paper. But if you were watching it, it really didn't look that close.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this in the first episode.
Hmm.
Cloud9 chokes when they get to playoffs. Every time, without fail, they choke and they do not make it to international.
Hmm.
So I'm disappointed but not surprised that this happened. I
Yeah.
figured it was going to. I did not expect it to be EG that beat them.
No.
I fully thought they would be like, oh, like maybe they'll win like the first game in the lower bracket. Maybe
Hmm.
they'll even get all the way to the semifinals and then end up losing there or
Oops.
whatever and like not make it to international.
Yeah.
But no, they lost like first round of lower bracket, which is upsetting because I'm like, we know they're better than that.
Yeah, if you look at the firepower, they really, they should have made a very deep run into this playoffs, especially against a an EG that has looked so bad coming into playoffs. They started finding their footing, and we'll talk about that as well later. But also against a crew that also just looked lost this playoffs. Um, you almost wonder what would have happened if they had beaten EG. Would they have made it, to crew, or was their confidence just shattered after Sentinels? Like I just don't know what happened. Um, so the question for me then is this: we know this about Cloud9 that they choke once they get to playoffs. This is a generational thing. It's just the blue organization. Doesn't matter who's on it, who's on the team, because this has been many different variations. They always crash out of playoffs. So in this instance, was this just Cloud9 underperformed, or was this that their opponents overperformed? Thinking specifically about EG.
I'm thinking in this instance, it's a little bit of both,
Okay.
but I think it's more so that Evil Geniuses finally found their footing. Like I think that's more so what it was than anything because EG was
Yeah.
playing amazingly. And obviously like they went to overtime on Icebox, but I mean at the end of the day like EG still won. And
Yeah.
when you look if I'm recalling correctly, if you look at the rounds that C9 won and lost, it's rounds that you're like, should they really have lost that?
Right.
Like, I feel like C9, my opinion, they looked ever so slightly lost
Yes.
against EG. So I don't know. I feel like it's a combination of both, but it's more so that Evil Geniuses just finally got it together.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I think that personally, I don't think that Cloud9 really underperformed that much. I think that they had kind of been riding this like steady momentum of, beating the teams that they should, and they lost to the teams that they should as well, MIBR and G2 in their group. And I think that that put them now in this position where they they were as good as they could have been. And we'll talk about EG as well, but EG is just better than them right now. It's just the that's just the story. That's how it goes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the off season. Off season, in between splits, I should say. I wouldn't expect any changes between now and Split 2, but Cloud9 is again notorious for making random changes and not always at the best points in time. So we could see some changes there, but I don't really know what you would change on the team. There's not one player or one piece that I could point to and say, yeah, that was the problem for either all of the stage or, even just this last game.
Yeah, because I mean, overall, I would say C9, they mesh really well as a team.
Hmm.
And they have found their footing, and we saw it in stage one, in the group stage, where they were able to like find their footing and get these really good games.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just fell apart. I don't know. There's no clear reason they fell apart. They just did.
Right, exactly. It just happened. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's crazy. I'm curious to see what happens in Split 2. I love Oxy. I think that as a team their energy is amazing, and we if we could have had them go to an international event, it would have been amazing just for the fireworks at the very least.
Yeah.
Um but
I
that's not the world we live in.
I'm saying it now. I think they'll get it sorted and be going to champs.
Okay, hot take.
Hot take. I think they'll figure out what went wrong. They'll figure out how to get rid of those playoffs jitters, and
Hmm.
then because they always make it to playoffs. That's the thing. Like I feel like they always do well enough to get to playoffs, and then they just fumble it.
Yeah,
And so I'm like, I feel like if they can figure that part out, they'll be golden and at least make it to international.
yeah. I could see that happening. If I were to bet, I will always bet against C9 in the playoffs, though, until I'm proven wrong. And they've given me no reason to believe in them. Um,
That's fair.
as unfortunate as it is, I would love to see them, give me some hope, but just hasn't happened yet. So we'll we'll have to wait and see for that day. Another team that gives me no hope is Crew. Um,
I don't know
on
what happened.
There's really nothing to say about this team right now except for the fact that they were maybe just in the easier group and this is how it was always meant to play out. Um it's hard to know because I think that like going into playoffs, a Crew being one of our undefeated teams, and we talked about this earlier in the game, they just looked lost. They could
Yeah.
not find their footing against MIBR, who just completely dominated them. And then once they got up against Evil Geniuses, it looked like they were just mentally boomed. They just couldn't do anything because they, were completely out of sorts. Um,
I
again,
will say
yeah,
they were close games
they were
because they
close
went to
games.
overtime on Lotus and Icebox was 11-13.
That's true. Yes,
So
they did have
it's
to.
not like they were blown out of the water, but they
Right.
certainly did not perform as well as we know they should have.
Totally. And I guess that's kind of my thought with them is we know like they shouldn't have had to have come back on Icebox as aggressively as they did. Um I mean they went into the half 9-3
Yeah.
and or 3-9 I guess if you're from Crew's perspective. But regardless,
And it
they
was their
should
pick.
exactly. They should have been in control of that map from the beginning. It just looked like either EG had the best read ever on them, which is totally possible. I mean, Potter being Potter, absolutely could have just completely antied the heck out of them, I should say. Um, but I think it more had to do with the fact that they they just weren't in it anymore. I mean, obviously we weren't there. I wasn't on the wall in the coach's room, hearing what's going on, but they just didn't look like they were, there to play. They were kind of just going through the motions. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing, but
yes.
because I do feel like it should not have happened that way. I feel like Crew are usually a very solid bet on doing well.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I think that we can typically expect Crew to get one or two, if not, make it through all of playoffs and make it, sneak their way to an international. It'll be curious. The one thing that I am curious to see is what this will do for them as far as their chances to get to Paris, because historically they have always made it to champs, albeit they haven't done very well at champs, but they have made it at least and snuck in at the end. So it'll be interesting to see if they can still do that, or if they've kind of hit this wall now where they've put themselves so far in the dirt that they actually can't make it. Because with champs
Did they
points,
did they make it to champs last year?
they snuck in as the fourth seed
Oh, okay.
over
Oh,
100
that's
thieves.
right. Yeah, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah, which is a tale as old as time. Crew beating 100 thieves to make it to an international, but I digress. Yeah, I love Kesnet. I think that he as a player is just someone who is fun to watch, and he
Yeah.
pops off all the time. So I hope that they come back stronger than they were at the end of this split. But yeah, it'll be curious to see what happens. So
For sure.
all right, that's enough about Crew. Let's talk about the team that everybody loves to hate, myself included, NRG. Um, NRG was
Uh,
there. That's about all you could say.
They existed.
They existed. That is a good way to put it. Um,
I would like to point out before we say anything else, not a single one of them went positive overall
yeah, that's crazy actually. I didn't
out of
realize
the
that.
series. Actually, oh no, sorry. On map 2, Som went positive.
But overall between both maps, yeah.
No, yeah. No one on energy went positive. Mata was the closest. He was 32-33.
Yeah,
But
if
otherwise, like, and then when you look at on the other side, you look at 100 Thieves, all but Boostio and EU went
mhm.
positive.
Yeah, you're not going to win very many games by not hitting those shots. Um, that's going to be an issue. The specifically looking at NRG, I think ever since last year, this team has just been a complete train crash. And it just doesn't make any sense because the pieces are there. You have Finesse, who I hate to admit is one of the best callers in the league, perhaps even the world. And,
I,
he historically has done very, very well. But just this split, he just couldn't, and actually, even kickoff this entire year, he hasn't been able to get his feet underneath him, it seems, to actually make an impact. The only bright spots you saw from this team was when individual people were popping off. Like you had, I forget which game it was now off the top of my head, but you had that game where Som just absolutely popped off and went just carried put the team on his back and carried them. Um, and even
I
for
think
the
that.
mhm,
Wait, are you talking about like a game they won
mhm.
or? Oh, never mind. I don't remember which one it is then.
Yeah, no, there was a game during the split where they had won it, and it was all because of Psalm. Um,
Sounds about right. Fork
yeah,
found in kitchen.
yeah, but this game, even what I do want to say is Brock and Mata to me are absolutely the bright spots of this team, and for sure where you should be putting your energy in if you're looking at changes. I don't think you should make changes if you're NRG. I think you just need to ride this one out and hope that the team chemistry is able to survive and pick itself back up and make the changes it needs. But
I found the game you were talking about. I think it was Lotus against Furia.
yep, that's exactly well. And unfortunately, Furia being the
It's
team that they
Furia.
are, that doesn't, I guess, mean as much as I hoped that it would have meant. But at the end of the day, still, they have their bright spots.
Yes. They still
And
played well that game. Or Som still played well that game, I should say.
yeah, exactly. So to me, it seems that this is maybe another example of what I was saying with Sentinels, where in order for them to win a game, they just have to have somebody get the biggest backpack they can, put everybody inside, and say, "Let's go." And that just didn't happen this game. On top of that, we'll talk about 100 Thieves in a second, but they really were not given any freebies because Xander just decided that, oh, that's right, I'm good, and absolutely demolished this
Yeah,
team.
Xander popped off.
Um,
Like that first map fracture, granted it was a 13-5, keep that in mind, but he went 28-7.
yeah, 28-7 is insane.
If I
Um,
got someone like that in one of my lobbies, I would immediately like report them for smurfing.
right, exactly. But not even that. I mean, even Haven, he ended up coming back and still was 26-13 to go plus 34 overall
Yeah.
on in a series when previously we'll talk about anyways. Before we start talking about and glazing Xander even further, I guess I just want to finish off with NRG. Do you have any thoughts about them? Any farewell words? Anything to say about them as they ride off into the 3 month night that is the break between now and Split Two?
Honestly, I think this is their ceiling. At least with this roster right now, the way it is, this is their ceiling.
Yeah, that's
I
tough.
don't see I don't see it getting better.
No,
Like we've
I
actually no, I should say we've seen it get better. This is their better, and that is not a good sign.
true. Yeah. Yeah, to have snuck into playoffs the way that they did, a 2-1 over Furia and a 2-0 over struggling Lev. I think that, yeah, this was maybe expected. Um,
Which I'm still surprised they won against Lev. Like genuinely. That
yeah.
still surprises me.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that shouldn't have happened for sure. But enough about those losers. Let's talk about the other losers.
Other losers.
Unfortunately, there were a lot of losers from this past weekend, and the saddest ones of them all has got to be the 100 Thieves team that thought that they could,
Yeah.
um, and just couldn't. Um, let's
I
recap
feel like
100. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say facing MIBR right off the bat is rough.
Yeah, let's recap their weekend so that we kind of have an understanding of maybe what they would have gone through. They played MIBR first because they were in the upper bracket and had to play the second seed from the Omega group, which happened to be MIBR, unfortunately, because MIBR, as we talked about earlier, just completely steamrolled them. They really didn't have a chance in that match. Ospas and Cortesia just showed up and destroyed them.
Yeah.
Going into the NRG game, I was convinced, as were all of the casters, that NRG was going to capitalize on a very weak looking 100 Thieves. And as we talked about it a minute ago, that's when Xander said, "Wait, guys, I'm here. Don't worry about it." And decided
I
to
got
show up.
this.
Yeah, and he absolutely demolished them.
Oh yeah.
So going into the G2 game, then, I thought to myself, now wait just a second. This could happen. I think it's very unlikely, but it definitely could happen. Um, and then the first map of the G2 game, I said, nope, why did I even bother trying to get my hopes up?
Yeah.
13-4 on Haven was not what we needed to start. And yet they still decided to, try anyways. And Split and Pearl happened, both of them going to OT. 100 Thieves taking that split map in the end, and absolutely should have closed out that Pearl map. Uh,
Yeah.
Instead, G2 just ended up getting it done. So I I think that this 100 Thieves team has shown that, well, I guess it's maybe one of two things. Either to me, and I'm very biased because I love 100 Thieves, and specifically Cryo and Asuna, I think are two of the best in our league, if not, even the world.
Oh yeah,
Um,
easily.
Especially at what they do. Like Asuna going in and making space. There's very few duelists right now in the world who are doing it as well as he is. Um, and the team, I felt like just through these playoffs alone, was able to get way closer to actually following him than they had the entire split. Um, just this last game, even I felt like the team was just continuously. I felt like we could see them learning round after round, and Boostio just called an incredible game to even put them in the position to almost take it from G2 and knock them out of playoffs. So
Yeah.
now that they have this 3 month break, what is your opinion on 100 Thieves going into Split 2?
Also biased because I do like 100 Thieves. I I want to say that I think they'll come back more solid. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're gonna fall apart because obviously kickoff was tragic for them.
Yes.
Um, and now we have Split One, which was a lot less tragic and actually like showed a lot of promise of like, hey, we can do this. Like we can actually win matches. Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
And so now I feel like going into Split 2, it'll be just kind of solidifying what they learned between kickoff and Split 1.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that this team seems to be on an upward trajectory. I think that for myself and a lot of other 100 Thieves fans, the big question mark was Xander, and it was, is he actually the player that Zix wanted to pick up, or is he just all that's available? Because they signed him quite early, and he was very good in tier 2. So it was very confusing as to why he just wasn't really doing what he was doing in tier 2 in the VCT when he came in. And I think that what we saw is what I was mentioning, just that this team has just taken so much time to actually figure itself out, pull itself together, learn how to work with each other, and actually support each other in their roles. Um, and in doing so, we now have a Hundred Thieves team that was able to take it to G2 and almost beat them. So it'll be scary to see if they stay on this trajectory in Split 2, what's going to happen. Because if I remember the format correctly, for Split 2, they're going to have to start playing all of the teams that are in the Omega group, which is G2, MIBR, Cloud9, and the other ones. So it'll be interesting to see if they can, keep this fire, uh, you know, beat G2 or MIBR coming into next split, because they, depending on who makes it to Toronto, won't have as much time as 100 Thieves will to really start honing in their skills. So for me personally, there's a little bit of hope. Um, Call it cope, call it hope. I don't really care. I think that this team still has a decent chance to make it into champs, or at the
Yeah.
very least make it deep into a split two playoffs run, which I
And
think is all
I
they can ask for.
I think as well, the fact that they did take it so close to G2, like,
Hmm.
yes, Haven was tragic.
Right.
Obviously, like that Boostio was 5-16 on Haven. Like you can't spin that any other way than that just being an awful game for them, like
Yeah.
all around.
Yeah.
But then like yeah, then we said they went to OT on Split and Pearl.
Hmm.
And again, they should have won Pearl, but G2 went on like a 5-round streak
Right.
cuz and then took it to overtime. But it's one of those things that I feel like their mental has always been good about bouncing back.
Hmm.
Like obviously cuz I feel like if their mental wasn't good, they wouldn't have done this well in this split after the absolute beating they got in kickoff. So I'm like I feel
Totally.
like there's always the silver lining there that they're going to bounce back at the very least to make it into playoffs again.
Yeah.
Hopefully more, but at least playoffs is I feel like a guaranteed for them.
Yeah, totally. I can easily see that happening. I would be surprised if it didn't happen. So I think that we can hopefully hopefully look forward to some 100 Thieves bangers. And just get ready for them for the future. Yeah. There's not really much more to say about them, so let's talk about the last two teams who are actually still in playoffs. One team that really has surprised most people, and well, actually, both these teams, I should say, have surprised most people. One team for not the reason you would think, and the other team for overperforming. Let's talk about the team that we wouldn't think would be surprising us, and that is G2. Um, I put in the show notes, are we worried? I think that's the simple question, but it's the question that most people are asking right now.
I mean, I'm not worried personally.
Hmm.
Um A because I do think they'll come back. B I would rather they didn't go to Toronto to give all the other teams a chance. Um
Mm,
so I'm not worried because I feel like it won't be as straightforward at Toronto if they're not there.
right,
But I mean, the other nice thing though is that I feel like with G2 we always do get good games, so it's like I'm not worried because we've seen so much good stuff from them even in the game that they lost.
right.
And like they did come back immediately to beat 100 Thieves and like yes, they went to overtime in two maps, but ultimately like they pulled it out and I feel like yes, they're fighting for their lives right now, but I feel like they'll be fine, I want to say. I feel like they'll make it to Toronto.
Yeah. I think I have two thoughts about this.
Okay.
My first thought is the same as yours. I expect them to bounce back. I expect them to use this week to really just dial in what happened this past weekend. How do we make sure that when we go against EG and then, the future teams for the lower and potential grand finals that they might make it to, how do we make sure that we are easily the team, winning these games? Um, and I think that them having the past, I guess it'll be 4 or 5 days by the time we get to Friday, will be enough time for them to really dive deep into what happened and how to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. On the other hand, I really hope that EG just pulls off this weird random Cinderella run
I want
and
it to happen.
runs through the lower bracket because this this team making it to where they have is just such a wild story. I am shocked, and I think that in order for them to, really finish it off, I would love to see them take it to G2. The two games that they've won have been very dominant 2-0s, so I would be curious to see if they could do it again against G2, a team that in my opinion maybe stacks up better against them for a plethora of reasons than Cloud9 or Crew. But mostly, they play slower, so it would be, can EG outplay the slow play that G2 has when that's kind of their thing. We'll get to that in a
Yeah.
minute. I guess my thing with G2 right now, we're running into this problem with G2 where they seem to have this idea of how they want to play in the meta, where obviously they have one of the best duelists in the world in Jagamo, and with him being on the team, he's the only duelist on the team. I don't know why I said it like that, but the point being that, most of these other teams are running some sort of
Double
double
duelist.
duelists, sorry, compositions, or more initiators, which I suppose that G2 is running to an extent. They have the breach, and they have the Tejo, and they're very locked in on those protocols.
Yeah.
Um, but I wonder if this is a situation now where them only having the solo duelist, and that solo duelist being Jagamo, as good as he is, maybe is starting to hit the ceiling of what they're actually capable of. Or do you think people are starting to figure them out to an extent?
I I feel like that is the case
Hmm.
because yeah, like you said, we've seen all these other teams run double duelist, especially on Pearl is the one I'm thinking of, that we've
Yeah.
seen the most double duelist comps. But then you also have like teams like Lev where they have another duelist just there. They have Keen and they have Demon 1.
Hmm.
So it's like it's one of those things that I feel like G2 are playing very vanilla in my
Yes.
mind for the most part, other than their Icebox, which has the no duelist comp.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah. But
that's the only like not normal comp I want to say that they have.
right.
But I feel like yeah, otherwise, obviously they're not easy to combat because they've only just lost their first match like last week. So it's like
Right.
up until now they've been fine with it, but I feel like now people are starting to like pick up on it, be like, okay, like we're kind of getting how they play, we're kind of getting how to counter them, like all that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and I feel like especially now the games against G2 have just been so much closer even when they've won, like recently.
Hmm.
Like it's just gotten harder for G2 to keep winning.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they stack up against this EG team. And let's just talk about them right now because I'm so excited for this team. They have shocked everybody, including us. And all they need is one more win to go to Toronto, which
I
if
want it to happen.
if you had told me at the beginning of the split that EG was going to be fighting for the last Toronto spot, I would have thought that you were absolutely crazy. I would have thought Crew would have been above them. I would have thought 100 Thieves would have been above them. I probably would have even put NRG above them, if I'm being completely honest, at the beginning of the split.
Yeah.
And the fact that EG can make this run is just so insane to me. Um, I think it's no surprise that the two games that they've won have come from just Icy and Ye completely just clearing the other team with no question about it.
Yeah.
They went plus 44 across both maps, or both matches even, I should say. Not even just the maps. So them doing the crazy things that they've been doing. Icy is in a form that we've really not ever seen. Even when he was on G2, he wasn't even this good. And
I am so excited to see him finally like popping off.
yeah,
I love Icy.
I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
And he just needed this one. I mean, him being in a very regimented play, style with Potter at the helm seems to be what is helping this team reach the form that they're reaching. And we have to mention Potter because anytime an EG team is doing well, she is she consistently the only constant in that team, where she's able to take these players and just show them a perspective of the game, it seems, that helps them to outperform whatever they were doing before. So I think that for this upcoming game, let's talk about that as well. G2 versus EG. That's going to be on Friday afternoon, evening, and that's going to be an insane match. Um,
I'm so excited.
I think there's a ton of storylines going into it. There's Icy against his old team, trying to get revenge on it. There's Jog coming back against Potter for the first time since he's left, and I I think and I hope that this game, at the very least, gives us some sort of you know good game back and forth. Even if EG ends up losing, I just want them to keep on pushing and show that when they come into Split 2 next season, or next split rather, they shouldn't be doubted that they aren't a good team. Um, I don't know. What do you have as the odds that EG can win against G2?
My delusion is telling me it's like a 40-60. They're 40% chance of winning.
Wow.
That's my delusion.
So what's your logical brain saying?
My logical brain is trying to not think about it because I really want them to win, but I don't think it's a very high chance. I think it's probably closer to, I want to say 15-20% chance of winning.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen, but I would love to see it happen. I would love for them, at least, like you said, to do well against them. That's all I really want.
Right.
Winning would just be cherry on top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that for me personally, I'm very much the same. I want to call this just a straight up 50-50 because I think with G2 looking the way that they have, they've just been looking low, and I don't want to take into account the fact that they are having 4 days off and will look a lot stronger on Friday. Um I want to live in this delusional world that EG is just going to cook and they're going to overcook and it's going to do exactly what they need to against G2. For both of these teams, it's win and get to Toronto. So in my mind, they're probably both putting all their eggs into this basket of saying, we're just gonna heavily ante each other and try to make sure that whatever you think you're gonna do, we're gonna know that you're gonna do it. And so hopefully we get some cool mind games because of it and some good reads from both of the coaches because both the coaching staffs are very good about that.
Yeah,
So
I'm excited. I love Potter. I want to see EG succeed just for her.
yeah, I think it'll be a sick game nonetheless. The other game that's going to be happening this weekend that we know for sure will happen is going to be the upper finals to send one of the teams to the grand finals. We have MIBR versus Sentinels. We already know what your prediction might be. How will Sentinels win against MIBR? What's going to have to happen?
It's gonna take John QT calling the games like he was against G2, because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like MIBR and G2 are on a very similar level, like skill wise, and the way that they mesh.
Yep.
And then I think as well, it will take, at least, like you said, one of the players like getting a backpack and carrying everyone with them,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's been one of the Sentinels like signature things, is one of their players will pop off on a map.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's most of the time anyway. Like there'll be at least one player that just does super well, and then everyone else just kind of does like, yeah, they're all right.
Right.
But I feel like that's what it'll take for them to beat MIBR. But I do feel like worst case scenario, we go to 3.
Yeah. Totally. I think that could happen. I do think MIBR will probably pull this one out, and the only reason I think that is because if Sentinels are going to win, it's going to have to be John QT rather,
I mean, he
calling
is a cutie, so you know it's fair.
either way. I'll take it. He's going to have to call an insane game, exactly how you just
Yeah.
said. Which we know he could do because he obviously did it against G2, and honestly, that Cloud9 game to some extent, even though he didn't have to do as much calling necessarily there. But against G2, we did see the real, the John QT coming back to form from what we saw last year. And so what I want to see is the way that Sentinels wins is everybody just does decent, and I think this game is going to have to be narrate popping off. We saw it during the split one during the normal season. It can happen. I think that if they're going to win, it's going to happen from him, and that's
Yeah.
really the only way that we see it.
But I mean, to be fair, we saw Narrate having a tough time against G2. Like, you and I were texting each other, and like, poor kid, he was like banging his desk, and like, he just did not look like he was having a good time. But
Yeah.
then they ended up winning. So, I mean, we know it's possible for Narrate to have a bad game mentally. And
Yes.
even, well, his stats weren't that bad, actually, if I recall
Against
correctly.
G2, they were pretty bad.
They were pretty bad. Never mind, I'm looking at them right now.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like, so we know it's possible even if Narrate does poorly to win against a very good team. But I
Yeah.
do think that him doing well, at the very least going positive, like set
Right.
the expectations low, very least going positive, we're solid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, is if they get close, if he gets close to form on that, then that, in my opinion, that's going to be what it needs to be to take it to the MIBR team, because otherwise MIBR just looks so regimented that it's going to be
Yeah.
really hard to beat their what they have going on to actually get past them. So, well, that will do it for the show here tonight. We don't have anything else. So if you guys have any takes, if you guys thought, hey, MIBR, they should have been talked about more, well, call into the show next week. If you thought that we did NRG too dirty, call into the show next week and defend your take. But for tonight, that's going to be all that we have. Do you have anything to shout out before we wrap up here?
Bundle.
Hi, the Send Bundle.
Also, yeah, just the usual, join the Discord, like the video, subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
It's a good time.
still learning how to do this. Every week, hopefully, it'll be better and better. We had a different camera setup this week, so different mic setup that sounds much better. Hopefully
Thank
next,
goodness.
yeah, hopefully next week we'll have even more
Yeah.
changes. Plan on getting some shorts out, and so that you guys can see this in a different way, different things like that. But um, I'm going to be out of town next week on Tuesday, so the plan is for us to move the podcast to Thursday at same time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But if you want to be updated on any changes to that, you can go ahead and you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. We have all those accounts, and all of those are going to be linked in the show notes below. Um, and if you have a take after G2 bombs out and EG wins, and you want to talk about how EG is going to win Toronto, come on the show next week and let's talk about it. And we'll go over your take with you. But that's everything we've got here tonight. We will see you all on the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you all have a good rest of your week. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.